Yesterday was a bad news day. And so today, I'm giving you a cover zero blitz of optimism.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Lots coming on today's show. How many 5 stars could Oregon flip this fall? Tosh Lupoi talk. Oregon trivia is back. That is a jam-packed Wednesday. That's what we've got for you today, and it is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Yesterday was not exactly the rosiest, glowing optimism show that I've ever been able to put out. And look, don't shoot the messenger. I can't control what the news cycle is. I just come on here and react to it and keep you guys up to date. That's the arrangement that we've got. So I thought today, you know what? Let's go optimistic. Let's start with Trey McNutt, who I don't think is going to miss the entire season based on the information that has come out about the injury. Dan Lanning spoke about that. Seems like he could return at some point this year. Does he work his way into the fold as a significant player on the 2025 Oregon defense? Maybe not. Because you can get, Wally pipped or Drew Bledsoe at that point where someone has an opportunity. Maybe he shines. I didn't think he was a starter. I did think he'd probably be on the 2 deep at one of those safety positions. So maybe that means a guy like Aaron Flowers steps up in his second year of college football and becomes a key contributor. Or maybe that means there's a sleeper in the room, like a Solomon Davis perhaps, who I think's more of a nickel but could play some safety back there. Maybe there's somebody that we're overlooking. Maybe there's a position change we don't know about. Or, best case scenario here in my view, maybe Dylan Thieneman and Kingston Lopa both stay healthy the entire year, and they make up the most athletic safety tandem that Oregon has had since Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi have been running this defense for the last 3 seasons. That would be my ideal scenario. And again, I am Captain Optimism today. That is how you shall refer to me for today's show. I am Captain Optimism. I've heard of this guy, Spencer. I heard he's a pretty good podcast host. I, however, am Captain Optimism. Don't forget the captain, like Jack Sparrow. Captain Optimism. So maybe that just comes to fruition. And could we see him on the field this year? Yeah, we could. And I think he's a guy that going forward, based on the type of injury this is, has a solid chance, a real darn good solid chance to get back fully healthy and be a big part of Oregon's secondary next year and maybe the year after that, and become an all-conference player, which of course we know is what he's capable of being. So that's optimism point number 1. Look how positive I am today, just across the board. Point of optimism number 2 comes in 2 folds, 2 takes, 2 angles, however you want to phrase it, for Jurrion Dickey. Number 1, the coaching staff did not just immediately give up on him and kick him off the team. Dan Lanning said he's been indefinitely suspended. They're trying to work some things out. I appreciate that the coaching staff, in this moment, and actions speak louder than words. Not that words don't matter, but this is putting words into action of, hey, we care about the guys we bring into the program. We care about developing them to succeed on and off the field. If it was just about on the field stuff and Jurrion Dickey wasn't working in the locker room, hey, we've got a bunch of other talented receivers, don't have to go in this direction and try to work it out. If this goes the way that you determine to be the best possible outcome, Jurrion Dickey has a heck of a comeback for Oregon, which is kind of strange to say, seeing as, he hasn't even recorded 30 receiving yards in his Oregon career. But is he still a talented football player? Is he still capable of being that one day for the Ducks? Yeah. And if Dan Lanning and company are able to get him into the right headspace, get him on track, and make him a good player, think about what kind of feel-good story that will be. It would be a reminder, especially for the more old-school college football fans out there, about everything college football can provide to these 18, 19, and 20 and 21-year-old kids, 22. And then, of course, you have some 20, like 6, 7-year-olds that are out there as well. So that's positive angle number one. Positive angle number two on the Jurrion Dickey situation. Oregon has now lost 2 former 5-star recruits going into one season. And the depth of this wide receiver room is still really good as it's ever been. I don't know that you can say the high-end talent right now on paper is as strong as it's been at any point, because the last few seasons have been exceptional. I mean, last year, Trayshawn Holden had to have been last year the best number 3 wideout in all of college football. I think he would have been a 1 on some teams. He would have been a 2 on a lot of really good teams. He was Oregon's number 3 wide receiver last year, and probably the 4th best passing target. You had Evan Stewart, you had Tez Johnson, you had Evan Stewart, Terrence Ferguson, and Trayshawn Holden. So last year, you had a crazy amount of talent. Well, guess what? That you can take a pair of 5-star recruits out of the fold and still feel good about that wide receiver room is pretty awesome. And the name that pops into my head first is indeed the latest Oregon 5-star receiver prospect, Jurrion Moore. Coming into this season, and I'm sure you could find a show of mine from back in spring, pre-Evan Stewart injury, where, coming out of the spring game, I talked about every position group. I'm sure at the time, I don't remember word for word what I said, but I can theorize what I would have been concluding at that time, that Jurrion Dickey and certainly Evan Stewart were 2 guys on the depth chart that would take away from Jurrion Moore's first season. Well, if Oregon's highest ranked receiver recruit of all time and second highest rated recruit of all time, regardless of position, suddenly has to take on a bigger role and still has some veteran depth around him to help maybe ease him into the college ranks and not put a big burden on him right away, but still allow the opportunity for him to absolutely shine, I think he and Dickey would have been closer on the depth chart than he and Evan Stewart, who I thought was Oregon's clear number 1 receiver coming into the year. But I feel really good about Jurrion Moore. Everybody that has ever watched him play football feels like, this is a guy. I saw one recruiting analyst a while back say that if he'd been in the 2024 recruiting class, which of course had Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, and Cam Coleman, he would have been number 2 only to Jeremiah Smith. That's some seriously high praise. And by the way, let's not forget that Gary Bryant Jr. is going into his 6th year of college football, was a borderline 5-star recruit when he was coming out of high school and originally went to USC. Justice Lowe is really the veteran of the receiver room at this point with how long he has been there. And guys have sung his praises for years in ways that not all of us that cover the team necessarily expected. I think we saw a lot of glimpses of that last year. Every time he was called upon in a situation of need, Justice Lowe stepped up. Tez Johnson went down against Michigan. Justice Lowe was there. Trayshawn Holden got ejected from the Ohio State game. Justice Lowe was there. Do I feel like he's ready for a bigger role? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I still feel really good about Oregon's receiver room. Maybe this means we see more Jeremiah McLaughlin this year. Ho-hum, another borderline 5-star high school recruit. I want Jurrion Dickey to do well. I want Jurrion Dickey to get back on the right path and be a major player for Oregon one year. It'd be an awesome story. But in the meantime, Captain Optimism over here is pointing out that Oregon's still good. Not a lot of places can say that, but Oregon can. So, shout out Junior Adams. And Ross Douglas has still got plenty of tools in the tool shed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. I should change my Twitter handle for the day to @CaptainOptimism here. How many 5 stars could Oregon wind up with? It's sitting at 4. Do you think it stays at 4? First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, and you don't have the full picture. That makes it really difficult. You can end up leaving money on the table. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's making it a lot easier. It's consolidating. If you have that one financial goal you've been wanting to reach, but you just haven't been able to get there, Monarch Money is here to help you out. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. Check them out at monarchmoney.com. Second segment sip, as always. I've been accused before, very hurtfully, of being too negative. Not today. Not on today's show. Let's keep the optimism rolling. So, if you want a question answered here on the show, you can submit one via YouTube comments, Twitter, etc. Become a Locked On Ducks insider, get priority access and a bunch of other perks. Or you submit a take for Spencer's scale of agreement. That's a popular one. So, this one came in. Spencer, scale of agreement on landing 6 5-star recruits. This is for the class of 2026, of course. Well, 6. 6 5-star recruits. Oregon currently has 4 in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings, which is what I look at as the most holistic calculation for what a guy's rating and what our expectations should be for him. But I know everybody looks at different services sometimes. That's okay. That's just what I'm talking about here. This would involve a couple of flips during the season. Now, we have seen Oregon land some pretty big names during the season or in the run-up to the college football season. Aiden Breland committed the day of the Washington game in 2023. He was part of the 2024 class. I think Aiden Breland will have a solid role on this year's Oregon team. I don't know if he committed that day, but Kayvon Thibodeau has always said that the Washington game in 2018 is why he committed to the Ducks, because they won. Autzen was going crazy, stormed the field, and all that sort of stuff. Getting to 6. Again, I'm Captain Optimism today. Chris Henry Jr. would be the most awesome flip. He's shut down his recruitment, is committed to Ohio State. Never say never, I suppose. I've heard Richard Wesley can be known to flip from time to time. He also shut it down. So Oregon would have to pull some serious rabbits out of the hat here. Ordinarily, I'd be lower, but I'm Captain Optimism today. So I'm going to go with a 4.5. 4.5. I'll just leave it at that. Caleb sends this one in. Here's a wide receiver prediction. Oregon will have more players with 300 or more receiving yards for the year than any season in Oregon football history. Now, this is just for wide receivers, according to Caleb. Now, the data don't go back into the all-time records for Oregon football here. But let's just throw out a number. 5. Could Oregon have 5 wide receivers with 300 or more yards this season? Last year, Oregon had 3 wide receivers that fit the bill. Trayshawn Holden, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart. Justice Lowe was at 200 yards, didn't quite get there. The year before, Oregon was at 4 in 2023. Could they get that number up to 5 or 6? You've just put this in the wide receiver camp, so just wide receivers. I'm going to put a 5 on this because the wide receiver room, guys can certainly emerge. Maybe Dante Moore's loading up and throwing to Decorey more, but 300 yards is not a major threshold. So last year, you had 2, really 3 clear wide receiver targets, as I mentioned, right? Stewart, Tez, and Trayshawn Holden. This year, you have a lot of names in the fold. You've got Decorey Moore, Justice Lowe, Gary Bryant, Kyler Casper, Malik Benson, Jeremiah McLaughlin. Lots of talent. I think part of this take is going to be dependent upon how involved Kenyon Sadiq is in the offense, which could be a lot because the take is about the wide receiver prediction. But 300 or more yards, I think that would be the most in the Will Stein era. That would be the most, I believe, in the Dan Lanning era as well. Let me just double check 2022 really quick, but I don't think that that's going to break the threshold here. We go receiving yards. Troy Franklin 891, Coda 497, Hudson 472, Thornton 366. That was it for wide receivers. So 4 has been the max so far in the Dan Lanning era. Could they get to 5? If ever there was a season to do it where DeCorian Moore might have a bit of an adjustment period, even though he's insanely talented, that's entirely possible. Because you've got the names. Justice Lowe, experience. Gary Bryant, experience. Malik Benson hasn't yet found it in college football, but maybe here Kyler Casper does it. And then you've got Jeremiah McLaughlin in the fold. I like that receiver room a lot. So just as likely, this isn't even me letting Captain Optimism inflate the number here. 5. I think it's 5. I think this could be a wonderfully spread out receiver room. All I care about more than anything is passing yards. Not really that picky about where they go. And I'd like to see Dante Moore get to 3,000, but 5 receivers getting there. We've seen it happen with 4. I think this would be the year to have 1 more in there. So, Quacker sends this one in. SSA. Dan Lanning never leaves Oregon and becomes a legend of college coaches. I do not think he will ever go to the NFL. Football there is so different. I agree. He's such a perfect fit for Oregon. His enthusiasm for the game is off the charts. Never leaves Oregon. He has turned down the opportunity to go to Alabama. He has turned down the opportunity to go to Texas A&M or Auburn. Texas A&M and Auburn never seriously got off the ground. I was told when the Bama job came open, the donors were ready to get behind Lanning as at least their top interview candidate, if not their top overall target. And then Lanning made it clear, I'm staying here. So I think there was at least some interest. And if he'd wanted it, I think he could have had the job. Would he go back to Georgia? That's one that definitely has my attention. It's the only one that has my attention. He has not coached in the NFL. He's a big-time recruiter. Those are usually indicators that a guy is destined to stay in college football. So I don't think he would leave for the NFL either. He's a graduate of William Jewell College. There's no alma mater poll like with Mario Cristobal, who went back there also to be close to family. Georgia's the only job I could see him ever leaving for. I don't think Kirby's going anywhere anytime soon. But Kirby's a lot older than Dan Lanning, who isn't even 40 years old yet. Let's remember that. So, will never leaves Oregon. Doesn't mean he'll be the coach for the next 20 years. It just means that if he weren't the coach, it's because Oregon didn't want him to be. I don't know what kind of world that would be. I really don't know what kind of world that would be. So, would he leave for Georgia? Maybe. I don't think it's a guarantee, though. 8.5. 8.5. Boy, I hope that take doesn't come back to bite me one day. But, yeah, I feel pretty solid in that. Dan Lanning likes Oregon. Oregon likes Dan Lanning. And everything's moving in the right direction. So I'm inclined to think that's going to sustain. Nobody ever thinks their coach is going to leave him. I didn't think Mario would leave. Then he did. But he had certainly more of a reason than Lanning would. So, yeah, Georgia's the only job. So 8.5 is where I land on that one. How about more Spencer Scale agreement? Yes, you're going to get that. How about more trivia? Yes, you're going to get that. Oregon's defensive coordinator should be discussed. All right, this take comes in from George. I feel this is a fair question considering the lack of interest from outside schools for our defensive coordinator. Would you feel more happy or sad if a team came in and hired Tosh Lupoi from us. More happy, or is it a cop-out to say I'd be in the middle? I think you can definitely do worse. Are there better schematic options out there? I think so. Are there better recruiting options out there? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And college football, you hear this expression plenty, I'm sure. Is it about the Jimmies and the Joes or the X's and the O's? It turns out that when you want to go win a national championship, you've got to have both. Well, I know 100% I am Spencer scale of agreement 10 level of sure that Tosh Lupoi can get you the Jimmies and the Joes. We have 3 years and now a fourth going into the 2026 cycle. We've got a proven body of work here. Tosh Lupoi, after coming down from the NFL and spending a stint away from college, he was with the Jags and the Browns, I think. I know he's with the Jags. He has not lost his touch as a recruiter. He's always been a great recruiter. Coming into this year, at the end of the season, I could feel differently. But man, I think I'd feel neutral for 2 reasons. Number one, I do think you could find a better schematic defensive coordinator. The performance in big games has been lacking for the most part. Doesn't mean the defense hasn't gotten better. It has, which is why I'm not sitting here saying, oh, he should, Oregon should move on from him this year. Like, no, this isn't Alex Grinch down at USC with Lincoln Riley. This is not, a black spot on Dan Lanning's hiring resume or anything like that. So I would feel neutral because I want to see who they hire. And the other thing to consider is that a lot of people have recruited well to Oregon. Doesn't mean Tosh Lupoi isn't better at it than somebody who Dan Lanning would be able to find. Lanning's also made some great hires over the years. Adrian Clem to Alik Terry, incredible handoff for the offensive line. We'll see how Ross Douglas does as the wide receivers coach. I'm optimistic. Early returns on the recruiting trail, pretty darn good. He's picked up Jalen Lott in the class of 2026. He, of course, got Messiah Hampton, who he had a prior relationship with. There's still more time to evaluate. Like, we don't have that much information on him. But, Kenny Dillingham left. We know that Dillingham's really good. Every Oregon fan I run into loves him. I love Kenny Dillingham. I think most people really do. I know they love him in Tempe. To go from Dillingham to Will Stein, boy, that's a heck of a coordinator change. Because it'd be really easy to lose a guy like Dillingham and downgrade, but part of being a great head coach is being able to make the right hires. Good head coaches make bad hires all the time. Brian Kelly would probably tell you he hired the wrong staff or defensive coordinator. They got Blake Baker in there from Missouri, and I think they are better because of it down in Baton Rouge. But, you have to make those decisions as the head coach because ultimately it comes back to you. I don't think your athletic director is offering a whole heck of a lot of input. The AD's hiring the coach. The head coach hires everybody else. So I'd see the positive. I'd also be curious the context in which, Tosh is no longer Oregon's defensive coordinator. Did he leave or was he relieved of his duties? I don't think Dan Lanning would fire him. Could he leave? I mean, he's left places before. He's bounced around a bit. It's not the least likely thing that would ever happen. He and Dan have always seemed pretty tight. The other thing you have to consider, Tosh Lupoi's never really been a head coaching name that's been tossed out there for coordinators. That interest has to go 2 ways. There has to be interest from other schools. His recruiting prowess alone could get him a look. That's basically why Marcus Arroyo got hired to be UNLV's head coach. He's now the OC at Arizona State, and Dillingham's done quite the rehab project there on him as an offensive coordinator and play caller. But, he did call straight halfback dive on 4th and 1 against Texas in the Cotton Bowl or whatever their playoff game was, Peach Bowl. But, hey, that's just one play. So the interest goes both ways. Coaches draw interest because of their performance. Coaches' names also get out there because their agents want to. I don't know if Tosh Lupoi wants to be a head coach. Some guys don't. I know coaches at the collegiate ranks all over the place who I talk to and say, oh, would you ever want to do this? No, I don't want to be a head coach. Too much goes into it, too much politicking, too much non-sports stuff. Like, some guys just want to be a coordinator. That might be Tosh. So I don't think the lack of buzz his name generates is purely one-sided. because a guy who recruits the way he does can typically draw at least some interest. But I don't think I would feel more happy or sad. I think I'd say, oh, okay, what's Dan going to do next? And I'd say, I'll wait and see, and we'll evaluate the hire at the time. But I wouldn't feel a sense of dread. I also wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, finally they got rid of this guy. Like, nah, he does a lot of things really, really well. So just because he hasn't done everything well or everything the way we would want to this point doesn't mean he can't get better at that, and doesn't mean he isn't still good at a lot of things. So that's not an SSA. That was just a question, but yeah, down the middle. Scale of agreement. If the 2019 team played a style of offense that better utilized Herbert's arm and gets our wide receivers in space more often, we make the playoffs. Yes, but it doesn't matter because they run into LSU in all likelihood. So, I mean, it might have been exciting. Have a playoff game. But that LSU team was not going to lose. They were so good. So incredibly good. So now for my my scale of agreement on that. They make the playoffs. I mean, they just had to beat either Arizona State or Auburn, which they should have been able to do if they had a better schematic approach there. I mean, they still went 12-2, won the Pac-12. So like, let's not pretend like it was just coaching malpractice. There was just something left on the table, particularly with Herbert's stats. So I'll give that a 9. Yeah, I think a better OC. If Joe Moore had been hired in 2019, I think that Oregon team makes the playoffs. So let's get to what is actually my favorite part of the day. Trivia. A lot of you like this. I mean, a lot of you like this. This has taken off more than I ever thought it would. I get so many messages about this when I overlook a player or players, as I'll get to in a moment, from yesterday's show. I hear about it frequently. The trivia question for today is not exactly a trivia question, but more of a, I'm curious what you guys think. So yesterday I also never got an answer, and I couldn't find the answer when I was doing my own digging. So the person who sent me the question about which Ducks had the longest NFL career, let me know. I'm curious. My guess was Kellen Clemens. I don't know if that's right. But I was also asked about naming all the brother combinations I can for that have played with Oregon. I think I did well, all things considered. I wasn't going to let the segment go on for 7 minutes or anything like that. But I did have a sizable omission. I missed the Sewell brothers. That's a tough one to miss, no doubt. To me, that's canceled out by having the Rushing brothers in there. Like, that's a pretty solid pull. That Eliza Rushing and Cruz Rushing have both come through. Other ones I miss, Wilcox brothers from back in the day. I tell you, some of you remembered some specific ones. I believe both Paysingers, or two Paysingers, played for Oregon. But the other polls that were impressive I saw, the Winston brothers, Lamar and Amarian Winston, both came through the Oregon program. How about the Griffin brothers? Taj Griffin, I forgot the name of his brother. Taj Griffin was a big-time prospect and, didn't fully pan out, had explosive speed. Always thought he ran funny, but he was fast and effective. He was in the Vernon Adams era, was his best season. But his brother was on the team. I think he's a defensive back as well. But Justin Flo, actually, also had a brother, Jonathan, that came through the Oregon program at one point in time. So, yeah, I think I did fairly well. Did not get all of them though. So, just to be clear, Carpe Diem _98. This isn't specifically a trivia question because it's a matter of perspective. But he says, Spencer, trivia time. At this point in time, which Duck players who went on to have NFL careers would you rank as having the top 5 NFL careers of all time? Thanks for producing an entertaining show. Go Ducks. This one does not have a concrete answer. Again, there's subjectivity here. But I thought it was a fun question, so I threw it in. So, of course, I'm biased towards guys I've seen in my lifetime. And again, I'm answering this in real time, which is why I've had some notable misses over the last several days. In case you have any doubt that I'm taking this trivia question segment seriously and not looking up answers ahead of time, because I love trivia that much. So in my lifetime, Haloti Ngata has got to be up there. He has to be very, very high on the list. Top 5 NFL careers of all time. Can I say that Penei Sewell is on his way? He's already one of the highest. I think he's the highest paid tackle in the NFL. He's got to be up there. Sticking with the offensive line theme, gosh, Max Unger had a great career. I was so upset and still am that the Seahawks traded him for Jimmy Graham. That was a horrible trade. Just a horrible trade for my Seahawks. Dan Fouts has to come to mind. Especially, it's not technically his NFL career, but, I'm pretty sure he's still a broadcaster for CBS. He's a really good one, too. Love listening to Dan Fouts. So, Panay, Fouts, Nada, top 5 all time. Honestly, got to throw out my family friend, Mike Walter. He played in the league for like 10 years and won 3 Super Bowl rings. Not bad. Not bad. Herbert's also getting there. I mean, top 5 NFL. But see, the difficult thing is Herbert's career and Sewell's to an extent as well, not actually over. I'm curious where you guys go with this particular clue, because I think there are a lot of names that don't immediately pop into my head. I mean, Patrick Chung had a really, really good career. And it was a long one, and he was just a real good player. But yeah, Haloti Ngata has got to be first. So I feel like I'm missing one. Oh man, I gotta look up what Achilles Smith Jr.'s NFL stats were, because I don't that's not something I know off the top of my head. Let's see. Achilles Smith in the NFL. Nothing overly spectacular there, so probably not. Yeah, so you said 5, so I'll put Mike Walter in there. Not just because he's a family friend, but because he had a pretty great career. Haloti Ngata. A little bit of projection here, but I really think Justin Herbert and Penei Sewell are on track and have just got all the tools to do so many things right. There's going to be there's always a big name that I miss. And by the way, thinking of this stuff in real time is a lot harder than a lot of you think. You can keep giving me crap for it. Just know it's tough. It's tough. It's one thing when I'm watching Jeopardy at home. It's another to be on that stage and feel the bright lights. I got a bright light right there in front of me, making me look semi-presentable. So, yeah, Patrick Chung. I mean, LeGarrette Blount didn't have a half bad career. There's got to be, there's somebody I'm missing, man. There's somebody I mean, Thibodeau could go on to be great, but he's battled injuries a little bit at this point. So, yeah, let me go Walter and Ngata and Sewell and Herbert, even though it's projection. Patrick Chung had a really good one. Really, really good. That feels too small. Because I can't think of one and it's time to end the show, I'll go with Chung as my 5th one. But there's somebody out there. There's an obvious one I'm missing. Let me know who it is. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.